Hello guys, my name is Benediktus and today I would like to talk about my syntax project. So let's begin with the definition of syntax. Based on my understanding, syntax is the ordering of components in phrase and sentence. So syntax is about how words are ordered and combined to make phrases and sentences. It's not random, so every word has its own place and function. And syntax also helps us to understand how we can make an unlimited number of sentences using only a limited set of rules and words. For the example, generative grammar explains that we can create and understand new sentences we've never heard before, just like for the example, the alien who teleported into my kitchen asks for Wi-Fi. So it's grammatically correct, but we just never heard that before. Okay, the next part is the properties of syntax. There are several important properties of syntax that I explained in my project. The first one is hierarchy. So syntax is not just about putting words in line. It's about how words group into larger units or phrases. So sentences have a hierarchical structure. For the example, I have a sentence: the girl with the red scarf waved happily. So this shows that with the red scarf modifies girl, not waved, okay? So the meaning depends on groupings. The meaning depends on hierarchy, not just word order. And then the second one is recursion. So syntax allows infinite sentences from infinite rules. Just for the example, I have a sentence: I believe that she thinks that they said that he won. So you can keep adding that clause endlessly forever. Just like, I believe that blah blah blah, I believe that she thinks that blah blah blah, and I believe that she thinks that they said that blah 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 blah. Okay, the third one is the structure dependence. So grammatical rules depend on structure, not just words or their positions. Meaning changes based on structural relationship rather than word meaning alone. So in this example, the cat, the dogs chased, ran away. It's grammatically correct. And then the second sentence is the cat, the dogs chased, it ran away. The structure is broken by adding it in the middle. So the meaning is still guessable, but syntax rejects the second because grammar is structure sensitive, not meaning driven. And then okay, the next part is the authentic sentences. So I collected 10 authentic English sentences from Introduction to Sociolinguistic book by Janet Holmes. So the sentence that I use is number 4, the sentence number 4. People sometimes switch code within a domain or social situation. So I broke it into parts and identified the lexical categories like noun, verb, adjective, and such, and as well as the grammatical categories. And then here it is. The lexical categories for people is noun, and the grammatically category of it is plural, and then sometimes is adverb in lexical categories, frequency, adverbs for sometimes in grammatical category, and then lexical switch is verb, code is noun within its preposition, a is determiner, domain is a noun or is a conjunction, social is adjective, situation is a noun. And then in grammatical category, people is plural noun, sometimes is frequency adverb, switch is present tense, base form, okay? And then code is singular noun, a is indefinite article, domain is singular noun, and social positive degree adjective, and the last one, situation, is singular noun. And then parameter for categorization. So to help me understand syntax deeply, I use 3 main parameters: morphological, syntactic, and semantic. So here is the table. The word switch does in morphological parameter, okay, the word switch doesn't have any inflectional ending like ed or ing, so it appears in its base form, which shows it is a verb in simple present tense. And then the word situation shows the word situation and with suffix and suffixtion. So a common ending for nouns in English. These morphological clues help identify it as a noun. And then the word social ends with al, which is a common suffix for adjectives. It describing or modifying nouns. And then the determiner a shows singularity and helps mark the noun domain as a countable singular noun. So by looking at how words change or what endings they have, we can identify their words, class, and grammatical role. And then syntactic distributional parameter. The syntactic or distributional parameter looks at how words behave in a sentence, where it appears and what it can combine with. Just for the example, the word people appears at the beginning of the sentence before the verb switch. So this position is typical for noun phrase, acting as the subject of this sentence. And then the word sometimes occurs between the subject and the verb. This is the usual position of a frequency adverb, which modifies the verb phrase. And then the phrase within a domain or social situation comes after the main verb phrase, switch code. So this shows that it functions as the prepositional phrase that gives additional information about where or when the action happens. And then inside the prepositional phrase, the structure, a domain or social situation, forms a noun phrase joined by the conjunction or. So the distribution of each element helps us confirm its category. So in here, syntax tell us how words connect and what they depend on. Even if two words have similar forms, their sentence position helps us decide their real grammatical role. And then the semantic parameter. It focuses on the meaning of word to decide the category. People refers to human beings, which express an action. The code means type of language or speech, sometimes refer to how often something happens, and within shows location or inclusion, meaning it introduces a prepositional phrase. So the semantic parameter helps confirm our choices by connecting grammatical categories with meaning. Okay, the next part is breaking the sentence into constituents. So I have analyzed sentences and broke them into their constituents like noun phrase, verb phrase, and prepositional phrase, and also the adjective phrase. But because I have the limited time in here, only 10 minutes, so maybe I only explain one sentence, and I hope Ma'am Sartika will understand my problem. So the sentence that I choose is, people sometimes switch code within a domain or social situation. And here is the 3 diagram of it. In here we have subject, we have sentence, and then the noun phrase one, people, and then down here we have verb phrase. We have the adverb, the adverb is sometimes, and then the verb is switch. The noun phrase 2 is code, and then down to the prepositional phrase we have the prepositional within, and then the noun phrase we have a determiner a, and then the noun one is domain, and then conjunction is or, and then noun phrase 4 with the adjective social and the noun situation. So yeah, the sentence begin with the noun phrase people functioning as the subject. The verb phrase switch code within a domain or social situation acts as the predicate. Within the verb phrase sometimes modifies the verb, showing frequency. The prepositional phrase within a domain or social situation adds extra information about where or in what setting the action takes place. This shows a clear noun phrase verb phrase structure typical of English declarative sentences. Thank you. Okay, the next part is constituency tests. I also applied constituency tests like substitution, movement, and Q&A. And in here, I applied the constituency test on two sentences. The first one is people sometimes switch code within a domain or social situation. Okay, so the test number one is substitution test. So I replace the people with they. So they sometimes switch code within a domain or social situation. Noun phrase confirmed, so it's valid constituents. And then the second one, I replace the switch code with do so. So people sometimes do so within a domain or social situation. Valid constituent. So, and then the last one, I replace the within a domain or social situation with there. So people sometimes switch code there. Prepositional phrase confirmed. So the result for the test number one, substitution test confirms noun phrase, verb phrase, and prepositional phrase are valid constituents. And then test number two, movement test. So the movement attempt. The first one is within a domain or social situation, people sometimes switch code. It's acceptable. The prepositional phrase constituent is constituent. And then switch, the second one, switch code. People sometimes within a domain or social situation. It sounds unnatural, and the verb phrase cannot be split. And then the last one, sometimes people switch code within a domain or social situation. It's acceptable, but only at verb fronting, not core verb phrase movement. And then the test number three, Q&A. So the question is, who sometimes switch code? The answer is people. It's confirmed, valid. And then what do they do? And the answer is switch code. And where do they switch code? Within a domain or social situation. So the result in here, the Q&A test confirms meaning units. Noun phrase, verb phrase, and prepositional phrase function as complete constituents. And then the second sentence, another important factor is the function or goal of the interaction. So the test number one is substitution test. So another important factor, I replace it with it. So it is the function or goal of the interaction. It's valid, and noun phrase confirmed. And then the function or goal of the interaction. Another, we replace it. So another important factor is that. Noun phrase confirmed. And then the last one, the function or goal. Another important factor is that of the interaction. It's ungrammatical, cannot be separated from of the interaction. So, and then the second test is movement test. The function or goal of the interaction, that is another important factor. It sounds unnatural. The second one, another important factor is the function or goal of the interaction. So it's the movement is restrict, but the clef alternative, the alternative here is clef alternative. It is the function or goal of the interaction. That is another important factor. This is acceptable. The last one is Q&A. What is another important factor? The function or goal of the interaction. It's confirmed, it's valid. Which element is being described? Another important factor. Subject and be confirmed. So in both sentences, the substitution test and Q&A test worked very well because they clearly showed that phrases like noun and verb phrase can stand as meaningful unit on their own. The tests were successful because only complete grammatical units can be replaced by pronouns or used as answers to WH questions. However, the movement test didn't work equally well for both sentences. It worked in sentence number 1, especially when moving the prepositional phrase, but it failed in sentence number 2 because copular sentence like X is Y do not follow natural fronting without using a cleft form. This shows that sentence structure is hierarchical and only complete constituents move or substitute naturally, while sentence type also affects how flexible the structure is. So, what did I learn about syntax from this project? So I learned that syntax is how words fit together and make sentence. It's not just random, every word has its own place and function. And now I get how noun phrase, verb, how noun phrases, how verb phrases, how prepositional phrases work. It actually made me see that there's a pattern behind how we talk and write in everyday life. And then the hardest part in completing this project was breaking the sentences into phrases and figuring out which part was NP, VP, or PP. Even though that I already known about this one, but it's still, I still distracted with everything. Maybe I am too overwhelmed with a lot of sentences that I have to break down. So I spent a few days doing it because sometimes I wasn't sure where one phrase ended or started. So I had to double check again. I have to double check a lot and look at examples before I finally realized that, this is the one. And then, how does syntax analysis help me in understanding language more deeply? It helps me see how language really works. It's like looking at the blueprint of sentence, and now I understand better why some sentences sounds right and others don't. In the past, I just guessing that whether this is right or wrong. If it's not sounds good, then I think, this is wrong. This is not the answer. And now I know. And lastly, this has helped me write better because lately we have a project from Mr. Agus to create a story. So this has helped me write better because I know how to build sentence in the right way. I think that's all. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you like it.